The views expressed here are those of the authors and do not in any way represent the views of SafeerTV.
Hello, assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Ladies First. Today the topic of discussion is what has been dominating the news, which has been the topic of 50 Shades of Grey. Now the reason why we're discussing this is apparently 70 million copies of the book have been sold, and the people who were buying it seem to be middle class yummy mummies, so to speak, professional women who are mothers, etc. And there's also been a film about it. What I wanted to ask you ladies is, do you think this book is a romantic love story, or is it actually promoting domestic violence? What are your thoughts?
I don't think it's a romantic love story at all. I think it does actually depict quite an abusive relationship. There's lots of things within the book that the nature of the relationship between the main character, Christian Grey, and Anna, the young girl, it's quite, there's a real undertone of control, and it's just not what it's been made out to be, this fantastical love story and things. It's not something I would say.
Has anyone actually read the book or
to be honest,
seen the film?
I haven't got a clue about the book. I mean, I don't know much about it. We just, what we hear and what we read, about what I've read in the reviews, and then there's all this hype about the movie as well. I think that's what made it a bit more popular now. It's been there for ages, hasn't it?
So why do we think it's so popular, especially amongst women? Because surely the subject matter would be something that mainly men would be interested in. So why is it so popular amongst middle class mums?
Isn't it that the narrative is from a woman's, is
a
it
female writer?
Yeah. I think that's the whole idea. So it's how she's viewing it, how she's looking at it rather than.
So as Muslim women, should we be offended by the premise that it's so popular that, I know of a lot of Muslim sisters that are reading the book, or some of their spouses have even bought them the book. Should we be offended by it?
What do you mean offended?
Well, because of the subject matter. Is it, a lot of them are seeing it as an educational prop or even a love story because of the content in there. But you're saying that you see it as an abusive relationship.
Love story, that's going a bit too far.
It's not something that I would ever say was sort of a love story. I'm not offended by other people reading it. That's part of the society that we live in. Yeah, you've got a choice to read whatever you want, and people can read whatever they want. But I think from my point of view, the thing that makes me very suspicious is the way it's been portrayed in the media. And for example, I haven't read the book. I have an understanding of what it's about. I've read various things about it, but my concern is that in the media it's being portrayed in a very specific way. It's going to be seen by a lot of young women who could possibly see that as a way of being a normal sort of relationship. And I think that you kind of have to sort of take the whole thing with a pinch of salt. And I don't know, I think people need to sort of read in between the lines. And
I agree with you, Francesca, that there is a serious problem of legitimizing domestic violence against women.
Yeah.
There is, in this kind of context, I haven't read the book, and I wouldn't waste a minute of my day to be reading something like that, quite frankly. Whether or not I had a husband is irrelevant. The point is, it does legitimize the subjugation of women, reducing women into objects of that kind of usefulness and nothing beyond. There is a harassment tendency in the story, I understand, where the man is stalking the woman. The woman is 21-year-old, and she's absolutely controlled by him. After that,
with her own choice, though.
Well,
no, initially no. Actually, the way the sort of book starts out is it's not by choice, and it's kind of becomes this real sort of intense love affair. But actually, a lot of domestically violent relationships start like that. It's very, very intense, and that's how domestic abuse can continue for so long, because it's so intense. And women are mistaking a form of controlling behaviour as, oh well, it means he loves and he cares for me.
From what those few reviews that I read, or whatever it is that I came across, I thought it wasn't a relationship really. He made it clear from the beginning that this is not a relationship. Just have them, pleasing each other kind of thing. But that's it. So there is no relationship here.
That then objectifies a woman. What is a woman's role in society? Is she just to be, in that sense, to
if
be
she's consenting to it?
Conditioned.
But there are instances within the book where she doesn't consent.
You see.
And that's I think is part of the problem, is we're getting these really blurred lines of, well, if a woman says this, actually what a woman really means is that, and that's when you get into really dangerous territory.
When there's no, when it's yes, this is back to the old board, you see. Why I have a problem with this as a romantic story. It's not a romantic story. It's legitimizing violence against women, objectifying women, turning them into things as opposed to beings. And what I have found most disturbing about is that people tend to copycat these things, and they do it. And the most recent example, most shocking example I have for you is this. There's a story in The Guardian a couple of days ago where an Irish man, very nice man, architect, middle-class lifestyle, wife and kids and all, and he has a relationship with a woman on the side, and the woman happens to be a woman who had severe mental health difficulties, so he's exploiting her weaknesses. What he then does, that he puts his 50 Shades fantasy into reality by tying her to a tree, gagging her and blindfolding her and stabbing her most viciously. She dies a most horrific death, and he even videos the thing, and the prosecutors say in the case that the girl could be heard shouting, "Please stop."
But we could say that about movies that we see in the cinema. We could say that about violent video games that children try and react.
No, but the danger here is, I mean, if you look at the posters, for example, it says on the poster, this is an incredible love story.
Does it actually say love story?
It says it's an incredible love story. That's how it's been described. For it to be, for the things that happen in the book and the way that this girl gets into this relationship with him, and I think one of the things she says is, "You're changing me." She says, "Why are you trying to change me?" And he said, "I'm not, you're changing me." Which, if you look at that from an abusive relationship, what that's doing is that's putting the responsibility of what is happening to her on her.
The blame on the girl.
The blame is on her.
Yeah.
My reaction would be, why is it then that there aren't a lot of women or other people objecting to this? This book, let's face it, is popular. A film has been made out of it. Women are saying, and you see this in news clips, they've enjoyed reading about it. It's opened up a different dimension for them. So if that is the case, then where is the objections coming from?
I don't think many people look beyond the fact that it's something, for pleasure and to enjoy reading, as a fantasy, basically, this kind of way of objectifying women is happening everywhere. Music videos, cartoons, whatever. It's literally everywhere. And to be honest, women themselves, they come out when they speak about it. They speak about it as something, as liberation, as woman liberation. They don't talk about it as an oppression of women.
Or the poster that has received so much objection. The beach. Well, are you ready for the beach? These things poster.
Yeah,
the poster itself looks like a woman who is desperately unhappy. I mean, look at the face. Forget the rest of the photo. Just look at the face and the eyes of that woman. She's not happy. Anyone who has been to any music industry, sort of like preparation for the album cover and things like that, where they hire models and things, see what the reality of the preparation of the work that goes behind this. It's again going back to the same old story of objectifying women and reducing them into nothing but
for God's sake, we've got Beyonce singing, what was it now, that song, how does it go again, Who Runs the World? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then she's singing about that and about the empowerment of women, and she's standing there, all half naked.
Whether she's selling music or something else.
Exactly.
But the issue, I think, for me, the phenomenon is that this is something that women have been praising, actually, that, oh, finally a book for us to read, it's so modern, it's so out there. And would this type of thing come out a decade ago, do you think?
My analysis of this is this. Firstly, the book is written by a woman.
Yes,
so that
exactly.
It's being given legitimacy because it's coming from a woman. We don't know the background of that woman. I don't know, and I'm not interested. Okay. Why she has this connection of pain and pleasure and humiliation and maltreatment at the hands of a man, she sees that as a romantic story, that's a psychological question that needs to be answered by the experts. Now, First, it's a woman who's writing it, so that gives it legitimacy from the women's point of view. Secondly, the kind of the bias that you described earlier, middle class, well-to-do women, etc. There is a high ratio of marital breakdown, and we know that divorce happens around that time. And so this is like a call to all those women of that background, like, you know, spice up your life if you like with this. And hence its popularity. The reality is none of those women are being invited to analyze this. What's really going on? There's a psychological problem there of associating ritual humiliation.
So are we saying that you know, two consenting people, because at the end of the day they are consenting, whether it's she feels that she's doing this to please her partner, but are we saying this type of, whether this type of indulgence is haram or halal? Because remember, if you're in a marital relationship, we are encouraged to be receptive to our partner's needs. So do you think Islamically this is something acceptable, the type of behaviour that is highlighted in the book, or not?
Whatever makes the couple happy, as long as...
Because one minute we're calling it abuse, and then the next minute it's like, well...
No, I think you have to, I think the issue is that you have to draw a line under things. There's one thing to be two consenting adults in a relationship that both have an understanding of what's going on.
And of the limits.
And of the limits and of what is and isn't okay. There's another thing to sort of suggest that, you know, for example, the book, this is a very young girl, she's very impressionable, she gets into a relationship with a man that's extremely controlling, and then all these other things take place after it. There's a complete difference to consenting and being in agreement and having that discussion together.
And being manipulated.
Then versus, you know, being manipulated, not knowing what's going on. Someone, you know, from what I understand in the book, put some sort of tracking app on her phone. He buys the place of work where she works. Oh, wow. Real deep psychological things going on. And I think there's a complete difference to two adults, both in agreement, doing what they choose to do.
But are we possibly over-analysing this? Because if you think back to the 80s and 90s, don't want to give away my age, but if you think back, and we had books such as Judy, Blume that you know, when you were a teenager you would read in school, and you had Barbara Windsor who would have those, you know, really intense novels. It was the same type of thing in there. You had the man almost stalking the woman, but he was being macho because he was stalking her, and it was romantic and it was wonderful. You know, that's how they made it out. Is this something new, or maybe it's just the same thing regurgitated again?
I think what's happening is we're just moving further and further along. You get desensitized to things, and I think that's kind of the stage that we're at now. And we're in a society where gender roles and what women should be doing and what women shouldn't be doing is, we're at quite a confusing time where, you know, this is supposed to be liberating, but is it really liberating? Who is it liberating? What are we being liberated from? I mean, these are the sorts of questions that sort of come to my mind. And I think, yes, we did have these things, you know, 20 years ago, maybe a more milder version, but I do think that as time goes on, with films, media, music videos,
role models,
all of these things, we're becoming more and more desensitized. If you look at any of the sort of celebrities, look at the whole Kim Kardashian thing. We all know what she's. Well, we all know what she's very. You know, she's famous for certain things. And it's kind of getting to the point where do we draw the line? What else can we possibly do to be more liberated? I don't know what we're being liberated from.
Even those feminist, what do you call them, movements now, they need a new feminist movement. It's all about...
Yeah, because we need to, let's come up with something new, and it's like, well, come on, let's strip it all back. What really is going on? And my concern is that, you know, it's the target audience that they're trying to appeal to. Yes, okay, you've got yummy mummies reading it and stuff like that, but who are the ones going to the cinema? I think a lot of the young girls are.
So I know for a fact that there's in our community, there were 13-year-olds trying to go into this to see the movie. But again, as I've said before, I think in our community we need to discuss things. They probably think that is normal behaviour. If it's popular, then that's normal behaviour that people aren't discussing. But I wasn't really interested in the whole thing because we've had this every 10 years. We have some waffle about this
revolutionary book that changes
and it's
lives.
almost the same thing again and again. What took me back is this has really been a movement pushed by women. It's almost like you must read this in order to know, you know, almost what your partner expects from you. And I even know some Muslim men who have been buying their partners this book and trying to, you know, give them something educational to read.
But isn't this just a false sense of, it's almost like if you read this book, you're going to find the secret to being this successful, fantastic woman. I mean, this is what I'm saying. What really is it all about? Why do we need this book or this film to come out for these women to say, oh, you must read it, it's going to change your life?
We've come to a point where women have made significant improvement in their lifestyles, in that domestic violence is no longer acceptable. We also know that women can stand up and say, no, I'm not going to tolerate that and do something about it. The injunctions, you know, the whole system is much more learned about these issues and deals with it better. There is also the other camp, the misogynist camp in the background there. Okay, this woman wrote this novel. It could have been nothing, but it has been taken over by, think about it, the misogynist, and it's been over-promoted, quite frankly. It's overrated, well overrated, because, like we've been saying, it's nothing. None of us had wasted the time to sit and read it, yet we see all the brouhaha about it. Let's just say, alhamdulillah, we know better. The thing is, I cannot accept, knowing the statistics, that most women are murdered at home by their husbands.
Or someone they know, yeah.
Yes, or someone they know, majority. And then if we say that this kind of behavior is okay, it's actually romantic, it spices up your life and whatnot, and then we have in the papers a few days ago an Irish man committing such horrific murder on a woman. I can't think that as a civilized society we need to be focusing on that side of women's rights. We need to be looking at equal pay. Can we do that, please? Let's do equal pay. Then you're talking to me, then you're telling me liberation. Do equal pay, do a promotion of women to the highest possible level. Let's get rid of this glass ceiling. You know, in every woman's career there comes a point where there is no moving beyond. We all know this. And why can't we dealing with, why don't we over-promote this issue instead of promoting what goes on in the bedroom? I have no interest in that.
Well, surely Hollywood is not stupid. We all know that it's about making money, and they've seized on an aspect
that sells.
Sells. This is not new. I think what is new is that the push, the phenomenon is the lady wrote this book. She's making money from it, and women are behind her. So, from an Islamic perspective, aren't we meant to be, you know, there for the pleasure of our spouses, and we're even promoted to, you know, be available and stuff? Is this book not saying that to another level in a language that maybe Westerners can identify with?
What do you mean by Westerners?
I mean,
Muslims
people
aren't necessarily.
You know, when I say Westerners, what I mean to say is people brought up in the West, more cosmopolitan women who are, you know, go to work every day, go to the cinema, see what's out there, what they have to contend with. That's what I mean. This wouldn't be in the Middle East, for example. No one would be in. Well,
you say that, but why wouldn't it? It would be. It just wouldn't be as much.
People don't speak about it.
People tend not to speak about it as much, I think.
So do you think this phenomenon in Hollywood, I mean, is it something new? Think about cartoons.
One of the actors recently came out in The Guardian, I can't remember her name, and she was saying the most misogynist institution in the world is Hollywood. It's the most misogynist institute. So of course when it sees a novel like this, it will hype it, over-promote it. Women are thoroughly abused in that place. Actresses of all levels, they all have to go through some horrendous things for them to get to where they are. You have no idea where they start quite often, what they have to go through to get to where they are, and that involves a lot of abusive relationships.
I think for me it just seems to be that we can't ever find a middle balance. We go from one extreme to the other. So, you know, in the 1900s women weren't allowed to vote, very repressed, and then in the 60s we had this great movement, oh, we're liberated, these women are out doing their own thing. And I think now it's unfortunate, but we're still at that stage where it's man versus woman. And I think that is, you know, women are being liberated. It's kind of like this book's liberating. Well, what are we being liberated from exactly?
I think feminism has been kind of
and
confusing.
It's like, well, this is it. Days, and it's like, you know, are we turning, you know, it's almost like we're trying to turn genders against each other, when really that who does that benefit?
Misogynist.
I think what's also important is how the younger generation, our children, react to all of this. I don't know if you've watched cartoons with your kids and stuff, and if you notice, they're the girls are in the shortest dresses possible. We're talking about certain channels like Nickelodeon, Disney Channel. It's all about they all have boyfriends. They all look like they're 15 and they're 10.
Even their body shapes, the way they, the way they look. It's like you feel like they all have one template. One body, and they just change the faces on each one of them, like those Disney princesses or whatever they are. So it's kind of wider than that. I mean, I don't know. We were just discussing the other day with a friend about Instagram and selfies and all that. And if you see the pictures of girls on Instagram, it's amazing because you're exposing yourself to millions of people out there. Okay, and the way to gain popularity is by showing your body parts.
But has this always been the case, do you think?
I believe so. I believe so, to the point that women and maybe even boys' understanding of romance and relationship has been severely distorted. Possibly that may be one of the reasons why there's a high rate of marital breakdown everywhere. Because everyone thinks, you grow up, you think, okay, I'm a Cinderella. Everyone is a Cinderella. Everyone is a little princess. And you think relationship works on that Cinderella kind of setting. But the reality isn't Cinderella.
But if you think about it, who was Walt Disney? He was a practicing Christian person who had values, who really believed in family, and that's when you read his autobiography. Walt Disney was a practicing Christian.
Right.
So he was trying to promote family, and this idea, when you look at the princesses, is that you work really hard, you're a good girl, the world can be really harsh, but you'll get your prince.
Yes.
And then you had other stories. So Tinkerbell, a lot of people were having this discussion. I was saying, I'm really for Tinkerbell because when I was young, I never saw, when you're a child, you don't see the images as being something, sensual. You see it as a child, someone who's meant to reflect you. I was always sporty. I liked adventure. So I was like, oh, Tinkerbell, brilliant. She's off with the Lost Boys or Peter Pan, whatever his name was. And I could relate to her more than I could do with the other character who wanted to be a mother to all these children. Wendy. When I wanted to fly around and find the pirates.
Yes.
So, but my friend was saying, well, actually, it's very subtle. Look how Tinkerbell was dressed.
Yes.
And as an adult now, I see it. But from a child's perspective, I'm not thinking about the dress.
No,
you don't.
No, it's subconscious, isn't it? It stays with you. I mean, look at us today. I mean, every other woman has thought about plastic surgery, for whatever reason. It's become so common now that you want to reach that perfection. Everyone is. You're never pleased with the way you look because you are valued
based on your physical appearance. I mean. The thing is, the thing that I find really interesting is you mentioned the thing about Walt Disney and practicing Christian, all those things, and I'm sure he was. But Peter Pan came out in 1953, and Tinkerbell was actually based allegedly on Marilyn Monroe. And there was a very famous scene in Peter Pan where she can't get out of the drawer because her rear end is too big. And kind of as a child, because I watched all of the Disney films as a child you don't really see that, but I think on a subconscious level that does start to it starts to sort of
form your mentality.
Form your mentality,
the way you think.
And what's really interesting is you comparing the two characters. Well, which team are you? Are you team Wendy? We are never going to get anywhere because she's just this.
She wants to be a mother.
Mumsy. Or are you on this sassy Tinkerbell hair? Look at me, I'm so cool. I've got wings and everything. So it's almost like in the film you've got these two female characters. Which team are you going to
back for, basically?
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing. Well, you also have Tiger Lily as well, but.
Who needed to be rescued.
Who did need to be rescued as well, yeah, that is true. So that's what I'm saying. In these films you have very specific female characters, and what is that sending to children, not just girls, boys as well? What message is that saying?
Thank you, ladies. That's been really interesting. Grab a cup of tea and a slice of cake if you want. We'll see you after the break.